It was one of those cozy Sunday afternoons where everything felt wrapped in slow light, the kind where the clock ticks softer, the air smells like tea, and the world outside doesn't matter. I was curled up on the sofa, legs tucked under a blanket, watching Michael flip through TV channels like it was an Olympic sport. We'd been married for 12 years, and in moments like that, it almost felt easy, like muscle memory. Comfortable silence, familiar laughter, the illusion of calm. When my phone suddenly died mid-scroll, I sighed, a little annoyed but mostly lazy. "Perfect," I muttered. Michael, without looking up, handed me his phone with a smirk. "Here, use mine. Just don't delete my podcasts again." I rolled my eyes, smiling. "Relax. I'm just ordering dinner." It was nothing. Just another Sunday. Just another moment that was supposed to mean nothing. The glow of his screen lit my face as I tapped the delivery app. He hummed softly, pouring wine, humming some tune he probably didn't even like. And then it happened. That small, sharp buzz. A message flashed across the top of the screen. "Can't stop thinking about last night." 3 photos. My stomach dropped. My hand froze mid-air. The warmth in the room vanished, replaced by a cold I could feel behind my ribs. For a second, I told myself it was nothing. Spam, maybe. Some stupid scam. I wanted to believe that so badly it almost hurt. But my fingers trembled before my mind caught up, and I could feel my pulse pounding in my throat. I didn't even dare to look fully at the screen. Just a glance at the words was enough to make my skin tighten. Behind me, Michael was humming, pouring wine into glasses, completely oblivious to the storm brewing not 10 feet away. I stared at his phone like it might bite. The message bar faded, and my reflection stared back from the dark glass. Pale, wide-eyed, pretending not to know what she'd just seen. "It could be nothing," I whispered to myself. "Please, let it be nothing." I took a slow breath, forcing my face to stay still, my voice steady. He couldn't know. Not yet. I didn't even know what it was. I just knew something in the air had shifted, quietly, but permanently. Then it buzzed again. Another notification, this time a flash of color before disappearing. A woman in lingerie sitting on a bed, her smile sharp and deliberate. My heart stopped. My hand went numb. I blinked, and when I looked up, Michael was smiling at the TV, as if the universe hadn't just split open. The air felt heavier now. My tea had gone cold, and I realized I wasn't breathing. I placed the phone down slowly, careful not to make a sound, as if noise alone could shatter whatever fragile control I had left. My mind was racing, but my body was still, too still. Every instinct screamed to confront him, to throw that phone across the room and demand the truth. But another part of me, colder and quieter, whispered to wait, to think, to not give him the satisfaction of watching me break. So I smiled instead, the kind of smile that hides bruises no one can see. "Hey, honey," I said lightly, my voice somehow steady. "Your phone just buzzed." He didn't even glance up. "Probably a work thing. Ignore it." I forced a small laugh. "Sure." And that was it. The last ordinary exchange we'd ever have. I remember the clink of his glass, the faint scent of wine, the way his laugh filled the room. It all felt like a scene from a life that had already ended. Inside, something in me shifted. The version of myself who trusted him, who built a life around him, started to fade. I could feel her slipping away, replaced by someone colder, sharper, more deliberate. I didn't know exactly what I would do yet, but I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I wasn't going to cry. Not tonight. Not in front of him. Not until I knew everything. I set his phone down on the coffee table, my heart beat louder than the ticking clock on the wall. My hands were steady now, unnaturally so, like my body had decided panic was a luxury I couldn't afford. "Hey, Michael," I said softly, keeping my tone casual, almost warm. "I think your phone just buzzed." He didn't even look up from the TV. "Probably a work thing. Ignore it." The words slipped out of his mouth so easily, so carelessly, I almost laughed. "Sure," I murmured, forcing a smile that didn't belong to me anymore. I stood up, straightened my sweater, and told him I'd check on the food. My voice sounded foreign, calm, light, controlled. I walked into the kitchen, every step rehearsed, even though I was improvising a breakdown I wasn't allowed to have. The second I was out of sight, I turned back, slow and deliberate. The phone was still there, glowing faintly like an invitation I couldn't refuse. I picked it up again, the weight of it strange in my hands. My thumb hovered over the screen for a long moment before I finally tapped the message. One tap, and the entire illusion of my marriage cracked open. Message after message, her name lit up. Clara. Weeks of flirting, photos, plans, a whole other life unfolding in that tiny glowing space. My chest felt tight, but my mind was suddenly clear. If this was a game he'd been playing, then I had just learned the rules. The messages scrolled endlessly, like a wound that wouldn't close. I didn't just see betrayal. I saw strategy. Lunch breaks that weren't, meetings that never existed, words that once belonged to me now repurposed for her. "I miss your laugh," he'd written. "Can't wait to see you again." Each line was a tiny, deliberate cut, and I took every one of them in silence. Then I saw her latest message. "I can't wait until she finds out. I'm tired of hiding." My stomach turned. They wanted me to find out. I stared at those words until they blurred. "So it's not just an affair," I whispered to myself. "It's a plan." My fingers trembled, but my mind sharpened like glass. I took screenshots of everything, every photo, every message, every proof of their cruelty. My hands moved automatically, sending them to my email, then deleting the evidence from his outbox. It felt surgical, methodical, the kind of control I wished I'd had all along. When I finally looked up, I caught my reflection in the kitchen window. My eyes looked different, colder, older, but awake. I realized I wasn't crying. I didn't even feel sad anymore. What I felt was something else entirely. Calculation, clarity, maybe even power. "You wanted her to find out," I whispered to the empty room, my voice steady and strange. "Then I'll make sure she does. My way." I walked back into the living room, the sound of my own heartbeat fading beneath the hum of the television. Michael looked up briefly and smiled, the kind of smile that used to make me feel safe. Now it only looked like camouflage. "Everything okay?" he asked casually, sipping his wine. I smiled back, that perfect practiced version of myself. "Yeah, just checking the food. Smells great." The lie slipped out effortlessly, and it terrified me how easy it had become. Inside, my thoughts were anything but calm. I replayed every memory, the missed calls, the late nights, the moments I'd dismissed as harmless. They stacked up in my mind like puzzle pieces finally snapping into place. For the first time, I saw my life from the outside, and it felt like watching a stranger's story unravel. I realized that the woman sitting across from him wasn't me anymore. She was someone new, someone he didn't even know existed yet. He leaned over, brushed my arm gently, and asked, "You okay, Izzy?" I nodded, my lips curving into something almost tender. "I'm fine," I said softly. "Really." But I wasn't fine. I was focused. The storm had already begun. Silent, invisible, and entirely mine to control. And the longer I sat there beside him, smiling at his lies, the clearer I saw the path ahead. The days that followed were a performance, and I played my part flawlessly. I laughed at his jokes, kissed him goodbye each morning, and even asked about his late meetings with that same patient smile. He thought I was still the same woman who believed his every word. He had no idea that I was studying him now, memorizing every move, every pattern, every excuse. It's strange how easy it is to pretend once the truth finally breaks you open. By Thursday, I had stopped feeling the sting of betrayal. It was replaced by something steadier, a kind of cold focus that hummed under my skin. I started planning, carefully, quietly. If Clara wanted me to find out, I decided she'd get her wish, but on my terms. I didn't want a confrontation. I wanted an ending, one they'd never forget. I opened my laptop that night and began crafting the perfect message. I created a fake profile, a simple one, a smiling real estate agent offering exclusive listings. It didn't take long to find Clara's social media. Her page was public, her vanity laid out like an open diary. She liked expensive wine, weekend getaways, and taking selfies in mirrors that didn't belong to her. I almost pitied her. Almost. Then I typed the first message, my fingers calm and steady. "Hi, Clara. I hear you're looking for a new place for you and your boyfriend." She replied within minutes. Of course she did. "That's perfect," she wrote, adding a heart emoji like it was punctuation. "I'll bring him." I stared at those 3 words until they lost all meaning. I'll bring him. The audacity of it almost made me laugh. They were so sure of themselves, so careless, as if the world owed them secrecy. I typed back politely, professional and warm. "Great. Friday at 8 p.m. The penthouse suite. You'll love it." Then I hit send and leaned back, exhaling slowly. The trap was set. The next few days passed in an eerie calm. I cooked dinner, folded laundry, listened to him talk about his day like nothing had changed. Each word he spoke became background noise, a language I no longer needed to understand. He thought I was distracted, tired, maybe even grateful for our routine. And I let him think that. I let him believe every lie he told, because I needed him relaxed, unsuspecting. Friday couldn't come fast enough. That night, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, brushing my hair, watching my own reflection with new eyes. I didn't look like a woman scorned. I looked composed, focused, unrecognizable, even to myself. Somewhere between heartbreak and resolve, I had found something stronger, a strange kind of peace. Not forgiveness, never that, but certainty. He wouldn't see it coming. Neither would she. Friday morning arrived with deceptive normalcy. The sun poured through the curtains soft and golden as Michael kissed me on the cheek before leaving for work. "Don't wait up tonight," he said. "It'll be a late one." I smiled, my lips brushing his jaw. "Of course," I replied sweetly. The words tasted strange. Too calm, too easy. When the door closed behind him, I stood in the silence for a long moment, letting it settle over me like armor. By noon, the penthouse was ready. I'd rented it under a false name, furnished it just enough to look lived in, champagne on ice, candles arranged carelessly, music cued but silent. I placed tiny cameras in the corners, their lights blinking faintly, invisible unless you knew where to look. The air smelled like fresh linen and quiet vengeance. Every detail mattered. Every move had to feel natural. This wasn't just revenge. It was theater. As the clock neared 8, my pulse quickened. Not from fear, but anticipation. I checked the cameras one last time, then slipped into the adjoining room, hidden behind the half-open door. I could hear the faint sound of the elevator, footsteps, laughter. Then her voice, light, excited, unbothered. "Wow, this place is amazing," she said. And his voice followed, familiar and sharp all at once. "I told you," he said, his tone dripping with charm. "You deserve something nice." My heart didn't race. It pulsed with purpose. From my spot in the shadows, I could see them through the reflection in the glass wall. Clara walked in first. her heels clicking against the marble, her perfume flooding the air like cheap sweetness trying too hard. Michael followed behind her, hands in his pockets, that familiar grin plastered on his face. It was strange seeing him like that, the man I used to love now performing for someone else, using lines that once belonged to me. I waited until they were comfortable. He poured her champagne. She giggled too loudly, leaning in close. I felt no jealousy, no heartbreak, just distance, a kind of detached clarity that made everything easier. I stepped out quietly, 2 glasses in my hands, my voice calm, steady. "Then I suppose," I said softly, "I deserve something too." They froze. Michael's glass slipped, hitting the floor, shattering into the silence between us. He spun around, his face draining of color. "Isabella, what the hell are you doing here?" Clara's hand flew to her mouth, her voice trembling. "Oh my God." I walked forward slowly, placing the glasses on the table. "You wanted her to find out, right?" I said, my tone almost kind. "I'm just making sure it's cinematic." Then I nodded toward the small, blinking light on the wall. The camera's red dot glowed like a heartbeat. "Congratulations," I whispered. "You're both on film." For a moment, no one breathed. The only sound was the faint fizz of champagne dying in their glasses. Clara looked at Michael as if waiting for him to fix it, to explain me away like a misunderstanding. But he couldn't. His mouth opened, closed, then opened again. No words came. Watching him stumble felt almost poetic. Years of manipulation, deceit, and confidence, all unraveling in the span of 10 seconds. I didn't shout. I didn't need to. Silence was louder than rage ever could be. Michael finally stepped toward me, palms up, like I was some fragile thing that might break. "Isabella, please, it's not what it looks like." I laughed, softly, genuinely amused. "Michael," I said, "it's exactly what it looks like. You don't get to rewrite this scene." Clara whispered something, her voice shaking. I turned to her, tilting my head slightly. "You should probably save your tears for your husband," I said. "He's getting the link too." Their faces changed in unison, shock, then fear. The kind that seeps in slowly, realization by realization. I wasn't there to negotiate or scream or cry. I was there to end it, cleanly, elegantly. Michael's voice cracked as he whispered, "You can't do this." I smiled faintly, my voice calm, deliberate. "Oh, I already did." Then I turned, walked to the door, and left them standing there, 2 ghosts in a room full of evidence. The hallway outside felt colder than the room I'd just left, but lighter somehow too, like I'd finally exhaled after holding my breath for years. I didn't rush. I wanted the moment to stretch, to settle. Behind me, I could still hear muffled voices, panic rising, excuses tumbling over each other. It was the sound of 2 people realizing they were no longer in control. And I smiled, not out of cruelty, but out of closure. Some endings don't need screaming. They just need truth. When I reached the elevator, I caught my reflection in the mirror-lined walls. My hands were steady, my face calm. I almost didn't recognize myself. The woman staring back looked untouchable, untamed, and free. I pressed the button for the lobby, and as the door slid shut, I thought about all the nights I'd cried in silence, wondering what I'd done wrong. The answer was simple now. I'd trusted the wrong man. But tonight, that version of me died right along with his lies. As I stepped into the night air, a soft rain began to fall, washing the city in silver streaks. I tilted my face up to it, letting the cool drops slide down my skin. Somewhere, Michael was probably scrambling, deleting, denying, panicking. But I didn't care. The footage was safe. The truth was out there, waiting to find its audience. For the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of what came next. I was the one writing the ending now. The next morning, the world felt eerily ordinary. Sunlight slipped through the curtains, the coffee machine hummed, and birds chirped outside as if nothing had changed. But everything had. I sat at the kitchen table, phone in hand, the link to the video already uploaded to a secure cloud. One tap. That was all it took. I sent it to his boss, his parents, and Clara's husband. No explanation, no words, just the truth, raw and unfiltered. The silence that followed was louder than any scream. Hours later, my phone exploded with calls. Michael first, of course. His name flashed across the screen, over and over, until I finally answered. "You destroyed me!" he shouted, his voice jagged, almost unrecognizable. "My career, my reputation, everything," I let him yell. I listened to every frantic word, every desperate breath, and when he finally stopped, I said quietly, "No, Michael, you destroyed yourself. I just pressed send." Then I ended the call. The phone rang again. Voicemail, texts, missed calls stacking up like confessions. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small or scared. I felt steady. Powerful, even. He'd spent years teaching me silence, conditioning me to believe that peace meant obedience. But that morning, I learned something new. Silence could also be strategy. And in the right hands, it could be the loudest revenge of all. By noon, he was outside the house, pounding on the door like a madman. I didn't open it. I just stood behind the curtain, watching him through the narrow slit, his tie undone, his eyes wild. The man who once seemed untouchable now looked small, desperate. He called my name again and again, begging, cursing, pleading. The neighbors started peeking out from their windows. For a moment, I almost felt pity. Almost. Then I turned away. He had earned every second of this humiliation. Later that afternoon, I went online, closed our joint account, and transferred what was rightfully mine. The legal documents I'd already prepared sat neatly in a folder. Divorce papers, evidence, every screenshot carefully labeled. I filed them with a quiet satisfaction, the kind that comes when justice doesn't need an audience. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger had burned itself out, leaving something stronger behind: resolve. When my phone buzzed again, I ignored it. His messages piled up, filled with apologies and promises I'd heard too many times before. "You're cruel," one of them said. I smiled faintly as I deleted it. "No," I whispered to myself. "I'm free." I blocked his number, placed the phone face down, and exhaled. The storm was finally over, and I was the one who'd walked out dry. That night, the house was silent, a kind of silence I hadn't known in years. No footsteps pacing the hallway, no tension humming beneath the surface. Just peace. I poured myself a glass of wine, the same vintage he used to love, and toasted the empty room. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like release, like finally setting down a burden I'd carried for too long. My hands didn't shake anymore. My breath felt easy. I had survived him, and that was enough. In the days that followed, the world seemed to shift ever so slightly. The sky looked brighter, my reflection softer. Friends called, unsure of what to say, and I simply told them I was fine, because for the first time it was true. I started sleeping through the night again. I cooked for myself, read books I'd once put aside, even laughed without forcing it. Freedom didn't roar in. It crept in quietly, settling into the corners of my new life. One morning, as I packed the last of his things into boxes, I found our wedding photo. We were smiling, young, unaware of what would come. I looked at that woman, the version of me who still believed in forever. And I whispered a thank you. She had loved with everything she had. But I had learned when to stop. I placed the photo face down in the box, sealed it shut, and walked away without looking back. Months passed, and life found its rhythm again. I rented a small apartment above a cafe downtown, the kind of place that smells like fresh bread every morning. Most days I sit by the window with my journal, watching people rush by while I sip my coffee slowly, deliberately. Peace has its own sound. It's the absence of fear, the absence of waiting. My phone buzzes sometimes, out of habit more than need, but I don't reach for it right away anymore. I decide when the world gets my attention now. One afternoon, as sunlight spilled across my notebook, my phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. "I'm sorry, please talk to me." I stared at it for a second, the words hollow, familiar, powerless. I deleted it without opening it. No anger, no sadness. Just a quiet kind of certainty. Some doors don't need to be slammed, they just need to stay closed. I smiled, set my phone face down on the table, and leaned back in my chair. "You handed me your phone that day," I whispered to myself, "and it changed everything." I took a sip of coffee, letting the warmth linger. But, in the end, I added softly, I was the one who hung up. The world outside moved on, and so did I. After all, he'd given me his phone to make my life easier. I used it to make his harder. Forever.